All right, well, welcome. Thank you for joining Transformina on behalf of Siemens in the Middle East. It's an honor to welcome this distinguished panel for what will undoubtedly be an enlightening discussion of the major development plans in the Middle East, the challenges we face in the region, and the technologies that promise to address some of these most pressing issues. Whether it's the race to diversify economies that are based on oil and gas, or to build the cities and the transportation systems and create the jobs for rapidly growing populations, digitalization has a crucial role to play to transform our lives and the way we live and work and even protect the environment. And so it's in this context that makes this panel so exciting for us. It's a rare chance to hear from leaders in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and from our CEO, Dr. Busch, about these important issues. But first, the introductions. We're really delighted to have, who was our partner in this event, Her Excellency Minister Reem Al-Hashimy, who's the Minister of State for International Cooperation in the UAE and Managing Director of Expo 2020. She was appointed Minister of State in 2016. She still, I believe, manages the Office of the Political Affairs for Dubai's ruler and Vice President, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. And she previously served as the Deputy Chief of the mission in Washington. Minister Reem has been the head of Expo 2020 since the beginning, since they were bidding, and she has a bachelor's degree from Tufts University and a master's from Harvard. From Egypt, we have Her Excellency Minister Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, who's the Minister of International Cooperation. She was appointed to this role in December 2019 after serving 2 years as Minister of Tourism, and that was she was the first woman in Egypt to hold that really prominent role. And from what I understand, she launched a reform program there that boosted the revenue to a record for tourism to 13 billion in 2019. She's a trained economist, has a PhD from University of Maryland, and she worked as the sub-governor of monetary policy for the Central Bank of Egypt and a senior economist at the IMF in Washington, covering Asia and basically India and Vietnam. So really interesting background there. We have Mrs. Deemah Yahya, who's the Acting Secretary General of the Digital Cooperation Organization. She was appointed to this role in November 2020. It's a new organization, which we're really excited to hear more about, that includes 5 countries in the region, and with a goal of boosting digitalization in government, trade, and economy. And she's been involved with the National Digitalization Unit in Saudi Arabia, and has a degree in computer science. So she's she worked in the tech side of finance before and was the chief innovation evangelist at Microsoft. Last but not least, we have Dr. Roland Busch, the president and CEO of Siemens AG. He joined Siemens in 1994 after earning a PhD in physics. He started in the automotive systems group in Germany. And I hope I don't get this wrong, but he spent 15 years in leadership roles there, and then in China, joined the managing board in 2011, and has since served as the chief technology officer, chief operating officer, and he became the CEO in February 2021. So with that and these introductions, thank you all for joining us. And now we will begin. This is a question for Minister Reem. The past year has been challenging for everyone in the world, for nations, organizations, and us as individuals. Expo 2020 was obviously rescheduled due to the pandemic, and several countries are still, fighting even now with the third wave. How is Expo 2020 Dubai preparing to welcome nations and visitors from around the world to the UAE, and what makes Expo relevant today in this climate?
Thank you so much for inviting me, and a very special hello and greeting to both Deemah and Rania, both of whom I admire very much. And also a very special thank you to Roland, who over the course of our journey together has also become a very close friend. As you all know, Expo was supposed to be held last October. But the whole world changed with COVID-19. And when I think of the perhaps serendipity of a one-year delay, I think that in October of 2021, perhaps the world will want to come together even more than ever before, given the lessons that we've all learned from COVID. And also given the fact that COVID has almost forced us to rethink our business as usual plans and approaches to solving for global challenges. The Expo's theme is Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, and it has 190 or so countries all present in the Expo site for a period of 6 months. And during this time, we will be covering a whole series of issues, a whole series of challenges that we need to address and that we need to solve for. And what better mindset to try to solve for this than a post-COVID mindset that really accelerated and really forced all of us to be more innovative, to be more inclusive, and certainly to look at the private sector for stronger lessons learned. I think by October of this year, you will find people really relishing in the opportunity to experience something, both on an individual level, but also collectively. We will, of course, continue to have COVID guidelines on site, as in masks and social distancing. However, we hope that it will be a much safer and a much more comfortable, if you will, place for people to convene in a responsible manner, and at the same time to continue to learn from each other and from this very difficult experience that has changed all of us. So I'm very excited. As you mentioned, Mohammed, I started on this journey when we began, which is actually 10 years ago in 2011. So it's been a long time coming, and I'm very much looking forward to hosting and to really showcasing the beauty and the depth and the intelligence that so many countries have put forward in their exhibitions and in their stories. And obviously to welcome all of you when you come, inshallah, later on this year.
Actually, just earlier today, somebody was mentioning Expo from your team and trying to attract the global audience to that. And really switching gears in the sense to Egypt, it was a similar topic of conversation. It was the robust economy there and the fact that Egypt has been able to withstand the impact. And I believe in no small part to your role, Minister Rania. So, you know, in your portfolio, you look at economic diplomacy as a tool, let's say, of economic development, especially in infrastructure and industrial projects. Maybe you can explain a bit more about that and what's the overview of these plans for your ministry.
Well, thank you very much, Mohammed, and also greetings to my fellow panelists, Her Excellency Reem and Deemah, and of course, Dr. Roland. And Siemens hosting this is, again, testament of how the private sector also creates partnerships with governments. And with Siemens, we have a very important example, which we can talk about in a bit. But looking at Egypt's robustness during COVID, you know, we are the only country in the region that has weathered with a positive growth rate and expectations of positive growth rates in 2021. And this really comes on the back of a very important concept, which all of us really feel, and that is reform is a continuous process. The Egyptian government started reforming before 2020. So when the crisis of unprecedented magnitude hit us all globally, it was through these different reforms that there were enough fiscal and monetary buffers. But more importantly, through the different development projects that were taking place since 2014, 15, and 16, the continuation of those projects through 2020 is really what kept the economy afloat. And the role of the Ministry of International Cooperation, as you rightly pointed out, it is pushing economic principles of economic diplomacy to strengthen our international partnerships. Egypt has put the SDGs at the forefront of many of the work it's doing with development partners, be it multilaterals, MDBs, or even on the bilateral level with our fellow countries that we work with. We have a portfolio of $25 billion across sectors, transportation, electricity, renewables, water also natural gas to houses, etc. And our principles of economic diplomacy are really working with the world to push these development projects that affect people particularly or mainly. And then some of these projects are either sovereign or are done with the private sector. So there are many examples of private-public partnerships. And finally, that purpose is always at the core. And this purpose or those objectives are the 17 SDGs, which all countries more or less have agreed to in 2015. And as we have now less than a decade to actually arrive at the 2030 fulfillment of these SDGs, we push further through our international partnerships. Despite 2020 being a year where international liquidity was a little bit tight, but because of the very important work through different projects that we do with our international partners, we were able to secure development financing of close to $10 billion, a third of that private sector financing, which is also testament that the country, when designing different projects, is able to fulfill them in good ways, pushing principles of transparency, governance, and also environmental standards. So this is sort of a lesson learned, and I'm an economist by training. Reforms are continuous, they ongoing because the world around us changes dramatically at any point in time. So as policymakers, we should not at all be complacent, but actually very agile in internalizing the different changes that happen and try and see how we can push our economies for the better livelihood of our people.
That's quite interesting. I think on the not being complacent note is probably a good point to bring in Secretary General of a new organization which is designed to avoid that in a sense. So as I mentioned in the introduction, Mrs. Yahya, you are the first leader of this recently established digital cooperation organization. For us who aren't really familiar with it, can you give us a brief background on what it is you aim to do, especially in accelerating digital transformation in your member states?
Definitely, Mohammed. First, allow me to please thank you and Ronald for having us today and to share this panel with the esteemed guest and my dear friends and role models, whom we look up to, Her Excellency Reem and also Her Excellency Dr. Rania. If we look at digital economy and the dynamics of the digital transformation the past 10 years, we see that there is an expediting growth of the portion of the digital economy for the overall GDP of the world. We see by 2020, it's about 16%. It's predicted by 2025 that it will consume 24%, which is about double that percentage in only 5 years. So the growth is rapid. And it's time for us to harness that opportunity. Although digital transformation, it holds with it a lot of opportunities, but also challenges as well, in terms of the high investment, also the time and the rapid change in technology. Therefore, for us to harness that opportunity, we have to work together. The nature of digital transformation is all about moving from an egocentric approach to an ecocentric approach, and looking at the citizen and the user in a central as its central. And here is where the pandemic has showed the importance of and the strength of the infrastructure of nations, and also the power of private sector to digitally transform quickly and rapidly. Now, if we look at globally, we don't see that a shared space or the platform where private sector as well as governments sit together and collaborate and create that future together. And this is where like-minded nations, Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Bahrain, Kuwait, Pakistan, and Jordan, and also we will be sharing some names very soon of countries that are onboarding to DCO, that came together to create that space, to strengthen that alignment with the private sector and create that digital future together, making sure that to accelerate the digital transformation in the member nations by looking at infrastructure, data regulation and policy and methodologies, upskilling in human capital, and how can we create the right opportunities for our youth and entrepreneurs. Also expediting the growth of the digital economy by creating a borderless environment and seamless business environment between these nations, where private sector will expand their opportunities and markets, as well as the social element of technology, not leaving anyone behind and decreasing the digital divide to focus more on providing the right opportunities for women, youth, and entrepreneurs. And last but not least is to, as I said, create that space for a private sector to have a seat on the table with the decision makers, with governments, to co-develop and co-create not only policy and regulation, but also to develop initiatives and harness the opportunity of digital economy. If we look at the objective or the vision that DCO has, is to create a digital future for all, empowering women, youth, and entrepreneurs, and also growing the expedient growth of the digital economy, and also leapfrogging by innovation.
I think we'll definitely get back to the empowering of the youth, but I think there was a couple of words there that Dr. Roland are very close to you, of co-creating and creating this framework really for digitalization. So, my question for you is, what is Siemens' role in all of this? We heard from ministers in the UAE and Egypt. We're hearing about a larger digitalization push. What are we doing? What is Siemens doing to help transform this region and help these countries achieve these ambitious visions?
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. And first and foremost, thank you very much for joining us today, Minister Reem and Minister Dr. Rania and Secretary General Deemah. It's a pleasure to have you and to talk to you about your exciting region. And Middle East and North Africa, for us, it's a very dynamic region. It's a very important one, and it's a region which is, as I would say, the whole globe is in a transformation currently. It's really amazing. And COVID was showing us how fast this transformation is going and even accelerating it. So we believe that this transformation has a certain root causes, and these are what we call mega trends. It's about climate change, which is a global one. It's about urbanization, which is the only way how you can drive productivity or drive the GDP going forward, because this urban environment is the most effective and efficient way to bring people together and to let economies grow, which puts another stress, obviously, when COVID came. Aging societies and another topic, or also our healthcare systems, which comes under stress. And then the globalization, what we call globalization, which was shown with the problem in the Suez Canal, but also with COVID, what's the problem, the resiliency of our value chains. And the whole thing is boosted and accelerated by digitalization. So this is the topic which we see. And I think the Middle East is a region which has its own transformation, where many countries are thinking about how to and also transforming into a new way into the future. So people is a very important aspect too. We believe that Siemens is in most of the countries, we are since more than 100 years. We normally say we are there to stay. And what we want to do is we want to really transform people's lives and make it better in using technology with purpose, technology which really brings benefits to the people, which improves the lives of millions and billions of people. And we have very good examples, thanks to the partnership which we have. And let me go through some of them. And when we started off with Expo Dubai, and here again, thank you, Your Excellency Reem, that for the trust in Siemens and for the really collaborative working together, also in difficult times. Now, I mean, now it's a year later, but and as you said before, you turned it around and took an opportunity to say, how can we now show that an Expo can be made still, and people feel safe. So this is about using technology and how you really can turn it, because that might not be the last pandemic which comes. So it's better we prepare. And for me, Dubai is a way to show how we can make people feel safe and comfortable in going into an event like this. It's more than that. You all know that it's not only about the Dubai Expo, it's about the life thereafter, where we have the most modern building, energy efficient buildings, and really showing the whole 9 yards of how you can run such a great environment, also with a more sustainable and lower CO2 footprint. Then let's jump to Egypt. I think we started off, the Excellency, with energy. This is without energy, I think there's no infrastructure to build, there's no industry to allocate to bring to the people. So and it reminds me still our 3 power plants, 14 gigawatts of power generation in record time. I mean, this is how powerful it can be if there are government and industry coming together, align on targets, and it's a benefit for the people first and foremost. It's a benefit for the economy, and it's really something where I do believe 45 million Egyptians have now affordable and reliable electricity. It's a business case at the same time, and maybe it's even opening up the opportunity to export energy and set up a new business model. And then let me come to Riyadh, where we are, as you know, we are building one of the most, we are engaged in one of the largest metro projects in the world. The first time when I met the Minister of Transport, he said, we want to build 6 lines at the same time in a city like Riyadh. I said, it's a little bit crazy, maybe impossible, but so together we made it. We are working on 2 of them. Other partners are working on the other 2. And it is really, it's driverless, latest technology, and it will change the way how the city runs and operates. It will bring also benefit to people. And obviously, I do believe that it makes the city and the country growing faster. We talk about 21,000 passengers per hour and a CO2 emission reduction of 1.7 million metric tons. That's almost the footprint which Siemens has in their own operations. So just to give you an idea. And I mean, one more last thing, where because I'm so excited about what's happening in the region is, let me give you one example from Doha. Here we work on meters, on smart metering, because if you really want to change something in the energy system, you have to know who consumes what. So we installed 50,000 meters throughout Doha in order to measure and manage energy and water consumption, in order to really drive the sustainability of the city and get more transparency, also giving us a chance to manage the grid better. So there are many, many examples. And what's amazing for me is just taking the 3 countries which I was talking about, that it's really a government which has a visionary plan. I mean, looking forward for the next 10, 20, 30 years, really how to improve the situation of people, how to transform your economy, how to use technology, the strengths which you have, the people as well, and to really invest with very, very smart plans and drive it forward. So it's amazing. And we are more than happy to be part of that journey.
Thank you, Dr. Busch. And it brings us up to, I guess, one of the projects that I could say a lot of my colleagues are generally thrilled about, and it's the Expo, being the Expo premier partner for digitalization of infrastructure. Minister Reem, we recently heard news in Dubai that Expo will become one of the 5 urban clusters in the 2040 Dubai. So now we're switching to like the future, really 20 years down the line. Can you speak a bit about that big reveal in a sense, and like what's the legacy that District 2020 will have, and then if you can also just maybe provide a bit of recommendations for others in the region to learn from some of these efforts that you made to make this a smart kind of a smart city, right, or a smart neighborhood, which will eventually become a very important cluster.
So I think just like Roland said so well, when there's a very clear laser-focused vision that a government has about the kind of lifestyle, environment, and ecosystem that they want for the people who live in that country. You see it in Egypt, you see it in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and you certainly see it in the UAE. Half the journey or half the battle is already won. And because the UAE has always been very clear-sighted about what that future would look like, you see that we started with renewable energy, for example, 15 years ago, or we started working on our nuclear power plant several years ago, or on our HOPE probe, again, several years ago, all coming to fruition now. And likewise with the Expo and the city that has been developed, and the partnership that we have with Siemens that made the infrastructure and the system infrastructure and its interoperability with other systems so well designed. This is actually the city of the future. And it shows and it demonstrates, not in theory, but in real life examples, how a 5G powered site can be technologically advanced, but also purposefully driven when you look at the sustainability and environmental standards that we've also managed to embed into this as well. The 2040 plan is a beautifully designed, ambitious plan of where the city is heading towards, bearing in mind what lifestyle people are more and more keen on having, what environmental underpinnings they continue to believe in. And so the legacy of the Expo, which is roughly around twice the size of the city of Monaco from a physical standpoint, is going to be part of a cultural exhibition / conference oriented site that is connected to a metro that brings it to the city of Dubai, and that is equidistant from the city of Abu Dhabi. We are in Dubai South, very close to Al Maktoum International Airport and Dubai Port, which really makes our presence and our geographic centrality a bit of an aerotropolis between port and airport, and certainly strong road infrastructure. And if you add to it our ambitions in space, then you definitely see a component there as well. I think the most important element here is, like I mentioned in the very beginning, to be very clear-sighted about what your end goal is, and to be also a little bit granular about what that means. And just like when Roland explained that the Minister of Transport said, I want 6 lanes to be developed at the same time, that level of granularity, so we can all understand what success looks like. I think that's really important to gear teams and multiple kinds of teams, multicultural, multi-stakeholdership, from government, from private sector, from academia, all linked and synergized with one another. That only happens when the end is very clear and when it's also very, very well defined. So I have the privilege of working on this project with a very clear game plan in sight, and hopefully we'll be able to move it forward in a manner that brings all of our partners to a level where they feel and they see that this has been a very deep partnership. I can certainly attest to the fact that our work with Siemens has taught us very much and has really even broken several sort of ground rules in upping the bar to really say, what does a smart city look like? How will a person who is environmentally conscious and cognizant, who enjoys electric cars and wants to have a low carbon footprint, who enjoys a typical high-rise environment that is more attuned to even a post-COVID reality, frankly, with more green spaces and with more spaces for family, etc. What would that look like? And you will have it here designed and developed and delivered in Expo. And so it really is, you know, we sometimes think of Expo as an event, but it is also, in our case, a city that will emerge when the event is over. And we've almost taken it upon ourselves to do both tracks at the same time. When the Expo is over, which is on March 30th, of 2022, March 31st of 2022, this site will be very much ready for its next manifestation. And I'm confident and I'm certain that it's going to be an added space for the people who live here and also for the people who come and visit.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Actually, on this point of clarity and granularity, I would say, Minister Rania, if we look at Egypt and really your role there in setting economic policy and guidance, one of their tasks, I think, is to design in a way the development to meet SDG targets. So what sectors are you really pushing forward, and how are you going to meet these goals?
You know, Roland had mentioned going back a few years when energy reliability was not something that we could be very proud of. And the concept of looking at key sectors which are transformative in order to open up the potential for growth. So it's not just that you want economic growth, but you want to be able to add opportunities. So definitely when we go from 2015 to today, 2021, we have not only invested heavily from a development point of view in electricity. Now we have transmission lines. We will be able to export. Renewables are now on the map. Egypt has one of the biggest renewable plants, Bin Ban, which was done through private-public partnerships, and it comes on the back of structural reforms that the government did. So a realization that if I open up the tariff to private sector, then we are opening up a new strand when it comes to development, and that is addressing SDG related to clean energy. So this is an example. Another example, when we look at what has happened also in the oil and gas and the energy hub, when we look at the smart cities that are also increasing the potential, and for those smart cities to be meaningful, you had to create transportation which serves the movement of people and also for private sector. So when we take a look at key sectors which were not attended to in line with the expansion that the country was hoping to fulfill, these were the priorities. And given now just the issue in Suez last week brought again the importance of not just waterways, but how, we have the Suez Canal zone, which is around the Suez, and it has been equipped with infrastructure that would allow for additional industries to be there, so that everybody can tap on the opportunities that are around the waterway. So when it's a very important reform agenda. We have a 2030 vision where we outline that if we're taking the context of what happened in 2020, leaving no one behind, you cannot leave no one behind without looking at multiple sectors, addressing the reforms that are required in the different sectors. Gender is another very important reform topic that we're taking very seriously. When we take a look at also partnerships themselves, no one is doing this on their own. When we wanted to do the energy transformation, we went to best companies in the world, and it was through these public-private partnerships that you are able to push forward. So going forward, digitalization is extremely important, as Deemah mentioned, and COVID is an example and point. No one would have imagined that a government as big as ours can work from home, and this was only possible by having that digital infrastructure in place. Education to a large extent also was done online. So these are, again, in our annual report, we called it Writing the Future in a Changing Global Dynamic. The global economy changes so fast, and it is only through being agile and forward-looking that you are able to address not the problems of today, but also the aspirations of tomorrow.
Big ambitions and a clear strategy, and I think you touched on one thing that Dr. Busch would probably want to address in Egypt, and it's transportation. It's one of these big projects, and one of the ways that Siemens has a role, I guess, So what is Siemens' role, and what technologies and major projects do you think Siemens will have the biggest impact on in the Middle East over the next decade?
Well, I think we are trying to really help and support with all our technologies. Is it in industry sector? Is it in the infrastructure and building sector, or is it in mobility or healthcare? To really see how we can help and support developing the regions. And to give you a couple of ideas, I think the Excellency Reem talked very well about what Dubai Expo is about. It's more than that. It's really the way how you design future cities in an environment which is not really suited for low CO2 footprint or low energy footprint, but still you do that also. Taking care about the water consumption, it's a full 9 yards, including safety and security. It's a full 9 yards of how you look into the future of cities and how it develops. So let me come to this, to the railway sector and to Egypt. First and foremost, please accept my deepest condolences regarding the tragic train accident which happened recently. So my deepest condolences for the families who maybe suffered here. And we hope that we can also contribute to make the transport more safe and comfortable. But the real vision, which President Al-Sisi also has, is that number one is building a backbone for economy. And economy normally develop in first you need energy, then you build infrastructure, and then you build the next level, which is industrialization, creating jobs. It comes not always sequentially, it comes concurrently, as you see in Egypt, for example, but building up a network. And we talk meanwhile about 1,800 kilometers in starting in connecting the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, but then going further. High speed as well as commuter. So it's for business connection eventually, but also for the people, for the normal people, affordable transport. That's the backbone of an economy. It will boost great jobs, local jobs in peak time for transport, but also thereafter, and it will develop a region. And it goes further. I know the vision is that you really expand this beyond the boundaries of Egypt, connecting other countries. And that's the first basis. If you connect people, then this is the basis for really having more trade and bringing a substantial higher quality of life into a region like North Africa. And then and coming back to Saudi Arabia, where I really admire your visionary plans. I mean, talking about NEOM, creating a completely new city. It's more than a city, it's a region, building based on really renewables from the very beginning. You have sun, you have wind, sun in the day, wind in the night. It's really excellent. So you can really change the way how you're looking into cities, but also developing Jeddah, Mecca, Medina as one area, which has a huge potential once you address it in a different way. And on top comes, I mean, I know that all the regions are thinking about what to do with the carbon. So it's more about using it as petrochemicals or chemicals. So investing in new industries, it's very interesting. But then we talk also about hydrogen. I think this is a topic which is coming up again and again, and we are also in discussion with the Ministry of Energy in Egypt, but also in Saudi Arabia. This is something where I believe the future lies. A lot of things to do, a lot of technologies, and I do believe that this is a tremendous potential for the people in the region.
So thank you. And Secretary General, Madam Secretary General, you've heard a lot about the visions and really the future. And I think in your previous role, you were really in charge of this national visualization strategy within the broader vision. So if we were to ask you to look 10 years into the future, how will digital transformation change the cities, hospitals? Before, I think you mentioned Hajj and Umrah, which are very complicated mega events that happen every year.
Well, thank you for the question, Mohammed. And I am very keen and excited to visit Expo 2020. From the 2019, when I met Her Excellency Reem in the spot, it was a desert, and now I'm very keen on seeing that transformation. The future is as exciting as anyone with any imagination. We used to imagine before, will I not go to the office today? Can I be productive while I am home? Can I get healthcare and medication while I am in my comfort of my home? Can we be more productive in terms of government and private sector, in terms of as small as conducting a business meeting? I was talking yesterday with His Excellency Abdullah Suwaha, where we were talking about, now we used to say we're late for meetings because of traffic. Now it's because of technical issues, and now we have to work on that infrastructure to make it right. The future is that technology is an essential. It should be looked at like water, electricity. It's a right that each and every citizen should have. As we have seen, and the pandemic we have experienced throughout the pandemic, that we have moved gradually into online learning, distance learning, working remotely, either also treating patients remotely as well. And also when it comes to the logistics and e-commerce and so on, it shows that the adoption of the people is very fast, and the culture can be changed very fast. And this is the time where we have to make sure that adoption of the culture and that change is sustainable. And how fast are we moving as governments and private sector to provide the right services for our citizens and our customers? And here is where I always emphasize on the time. We don't have time anymore, and this is where we really have to work in collaboration more, and we have to provide the private sector with all the needs and the resources for them to thrive and harness that digital opportunities, because they are what's going to move the needle when it comes to digital economy. So the future that I see is that it's in the palm of your hands. You can do anything just by a click of a button in the palm of your hand, where that spots of either where you have been or where you will go will be tracked, and you will have it all in the palm of your hands.
Thank you so much. And I know we're coming to the end of our time, so I want to make sure that we don't go over with for anybody. So maybe just a quick question, or a quick round, and we'll start with Minister Reem. Just 30 seconds. What do you think is the biggest impact in terms of sustainability for Expo's legacy and sustainability?
We're going to introduce a free single-use plastic approach on site. And I think for the scale and the depth that we're doing, it's going to be an important behavioral and community change, if you will, in making sure that people become far more conscious and cognizant of the use of plastic as a symptom of a larger environmental footprint that we have. So I think that would be that if we could do that well, and if it could infiltrate across the community, I think we would be successful.
Right.
Minister Rania, let's say, how has ESG become a bit more of an important topic in Egypt, and do you think it's been elevated because of the pandemic? Is this something that you see incorporated into your plans?
No, absolutely. I mean, ESG is important now globally, because shareholders are stakeholders now, and this whole concept of stakeholder capitalism, everyone on the table, and competition, or not competition, firms looking for opportunities are going to try and make sure that ESG principles are weaved into their business models in whatever country they go to. They are also not just fancy words, but they actually impact people. They impact our ability to achieve our goals, the SDG goals for 2030. So we take them very seriously. Minister Reem mentioned single use. We push for single use as well. We're a ministry that has single use plastic, and we do have several projects that push for that. when it comes to transparency, governance, when it comes to trying to make sure that sustainable dimensions are taken into account. Today, in our government projects and others, 30% have to be in line with global environmental standards. So there's this movement. And so one of the maybe silver linings in the pandemic was that we are pushing the sustainability reform more vigorously, because each one of us felt it. It's not just at a government level, but also at an individual level and at a business level.
Thank you. And Dr. Busch, I'll give you the last word. Just in terms of the impact of Siemens, and you're hearing this, how to get to the next step. Yeah. What can we do to help?
Well, when we talk about ESG, let me focus on the S, which is about people. Because I believe technology alone is not good enough. Only people can turn visions into reality. And I believe that education is the single biggest lever for change and prosperity. So I think, and I appreciate very much also that I know that all of you are engaging also in the way how you can train and educate people. We do the same. Is it vocational training? But is it also training of engineers? We gave 300 million software grants to UAE, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia for the students to learn modern technologies, software technologies. But it's a full 9 yards also on service, educating and training people, attracting good people. And I believe that's one element which is very much in the center of everything we do. Also at Siemens, we're spending 300 million per annum in education and training of our own people. And also digital now, more and more. And that's something which we would like also to contribute in order to help really the people in the region realizing all the great visions for a better way of life.
Well, we're going to have to end it on that. Thank you so much, Minister Reem, Minister Rania, Secretary General, Dr. Busch, for this enlightening and really inspiring conversation. It's always great to hear from our leaders about where we're going as a society. For more on how to get there, please check out the Siemens Transformina conference and website for a deeper dive into the technologies that are transforming industry, infrastructure, transportation in the region and around the world.
Thank you, Excellencies, and I hope to see you in your region anytime soon.
Thank you very much, and I commend you for more than a balanced panel, because there are more females than males.
Oh, well, I felt very comfortable, very comfortable.
Reem, lovely seeing you on the screen, and hopefully we meet up soon. Deemah, was lovely seeing you in Riyadh.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you all and be with you. مع السلامة. الله يحفظكم. مع السلامة.
الله يخليكي. مع السلامة.